700 federal agents, 120 reputed rival gang members. Bronx, New York. It's believed to be the largest gang takedown in New York City history.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Slim Hoffa True Crime Time. Today, I want to go even deeper into the fascinating psychology of body language. Specifically, why guilty people tend to fold their arms when being questioned or scrutinized. This isn't just a coincidence. Crossing your arms in high-pressure situations can be a powerful subconscious signal. And when you start to notice it in these high-profile cases, it becomes hard to ignore. Let's not only explore the cases of Chris Watts, Stephan Sterns, Trezell West, and Terrell Rhodes, but also dig into the psychology behind why their bodies betrayed them, even as they tried to hide the truth. Crossing your arms is one of the most universal gestures humans make. Psychologists say it's a defensive posture, something that goes back to our earliest instincts. When we feel threatened, whether physically, emotionally, or socially, our bodies instinctively try to protect us. Think about it. When someone insults you, your natural reaction might be to cross your arms. It's a way to shield yourself, to create a barrier. But there's another layer to it. Crossing your arms isn't just about defense. It's also about self-soothing. Psychologists describe it as a subconscious way to comfort yourself when you're stressed or anxious. It's like giving yourself a hug in moments of discomfort. When someone is guilty, they're under a tremendous amount of stress, and their body often reacts in ways they can't control. This is what we call body language leakage. Even if their words are carefully crafted, their bodies can reveal what they're truly feeling. Let's connect this to the case of Chris Watts. When Chris sat down for his interviews, his words said one thing, but his body language told another story entirely. His arms were often crossed tightly over his chest. On the surface, this might seem like a normal posture, but in the context of his situation, it stood out. Chris was claiming to be heartbroken and desperate to find his wife and daughters, yet his body was closed off. Crossing his arms created a barrier between himself and the interviewer, and really, between himself and the truth. Psychologists would say Chris was subconsciously trying to protect himself from the emotional weight of his actions. He wasn't grieving, he was concealing. Folding his arms gave him a small sense of control in a situation where the truth was slowly unraveling. When you think about it, someone truly innocent and distraught would likely have more open body language. They'd lean forward, gesture, and show vulnerability. Chris did the opposite, and his posture was one of the first signs that something wasn't right. Now, let's talk about Stephan Sterns in the Maddie Soto case. Stephan displayed a lot of the same behaviors during questioning. He often crossed his arms, especially when the investigators pressed him on specific details. Crossing your arms in this context is what psychologists call a blocking behavior. It's a way of distancing yourself, not just from the person questioning you, but also from the guilt or fear you're feeling internally. When someone lies, it creates cognitive dissonance, that feeling of discomfort when your actions don't align with your beliefs or values. For Stephan, crossing his arms may have been an unconscious attempt to reduce that discomfort. His body was essentially trying to shield him from the truth he didn't want to face. And what's so interesting is that his posture didn't match his words. He was trying to appear cooperative, but his body language screamed defensiveness. This mismatch is often a key indicator of deception. Moving on to Trezell West, the adoptive father of Orrin and Orson West, we see another example of crossed arms being a red flag. During interviews, Trezell stood stiffly, his arms folded tightly across his chest. For a parent whose children were supposedly missing, this kind of body language was completely out of place. When parents lose their children, they're usually emotional, gesturing, reaching out for help. Their body language is open and expressive because they want the world to help them find their kids. But Trezell's body language was the opposite. What's fascinating is that crossing your arms isn't just about defense. It can also signal control. In Trezell's case, his posture seemed calculated. He wasn't showing genuine emotion. He was trying to keep himself composed, to hold himself together. But in doing so, he appeared detached and cold. Body language experts often say that guilty individuals will cross their arms as a way to brace themselves, as if they're trying to hold back the truth or protect themselves from being exposed. Finally, let's look at Terrell Rhodes, who killed 2-year-old Amari Nicholson. Terrell's interviews provide yet another example of how body language can betray someone's guilt. Throughout his questioning, Terrell frequently crossed his arms, especially when the questions became more direct. Each time the investigators pressed him, his body instinctively tried to shield itself. What's particularly interesting about Terrell's case is how his crossed arms were paired with other defensive behaviors. He avoided eye contact, his tone was inconsistent, and his story kept changing. When someone is lying, their body is under a tremendous amount of stress, and that stress often manifests in physical ways, like crossing the arms, shifting in their seat, or avoiding direct gaze. For Terrell, his crossed arms were a clear sign of discomfort and guilt. It's as if his body was saying, "I can't handle this," even while his words tried to maintain his innocence. So, what do we take away from this? Crossing your arms might seem like a small thing, but in these cases, it was a significant tell. Psychologists call this nonverbal leakage, when your subconscious emotions slip out through your body language, even if you're trying to control your words. For Chris Watts, Stephan Sterns, Trezell West, and Terrell Rhodes, their crossed arms weren't just random gestures. They were subconscious signals of guilt, defensiveness, and the need to protect themselves emotionally. Here's what's important to remember. Body language doesn't lie. While crossing your arms isn't always a sign of guilt, it could just be a habit or a reaction to feeling cold. In high-stress, high-stakes situations like these, it can reveal a lot. It's the context that matters. When someone's words don't match their posture, it's often a huge red flag. Now I want to hear from you. Have you noticed this pattern in other cases? Do you think crossing your arms is a sign of guilt, or could it sometimes just be a coincidence? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the psychology of true crime, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos like this. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and stay safe.
Subscribe, if you haven't already. And hit the like button. Only if you like my content. Thank you for watching Slim Hoffa True Crime Time.
It's a link in my bio, click it. I'm going viral every minute.